All right, Joel. I think we might make a start, just given we've got some good numbers now in on this morning's webinar. So a warm welcome to everyone that has joined us from around the world. If you'd like, you could drop in the comment section just where you're calling in from today, perhaps what city you're in, and perhaps what time of the day it is as well, just so we can get a bit of a feel for where everyone in the world is calling from today. But first of all, on behalf of myself, Nick Bartlett, Michael Ashton, and Claudia Chu, that we like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. Today is proudly sponsored by Shopify as our partner, based here in Hong Kong, where Michael and I are based, representing Wayfinder and Butter Digital, a leading marketing agency and fourth-party logistics companies based out of Hong Kong. So if we just jump to the next slide there, Joel, we'll just do some quick introductions and then we'll kind of get straight into it. We've got someone calling in from Dubai. It's noon time by the look of it, so just in time for lunch, which is good. Adriana coming in from Frankfurt, Germany, 9 a.m. Thank you for joining us nice and early. Hope you got your coffee. It is 4 p.m. here in Hong Kong, just for those that are interested. So this is towards the back end of our day, or sort of, you could say. And thanks again for joining and sharing where you're dialing in from. So just as a quick introduction, if we just jump to that next slide, please.
Claudia?
There we go. Okay, so first of all, welcome to this webinar. Today's all about scaling your e-commerce in the right way. And we've decided to put 3 different chunks of what the right part of scaling together really needs to look like and should look like. And as part of that, today we've got 3 speakers that will present different aspects of what scaling looks like successfully. So we're covering the platform with Claudia, who represents Shopify as the lead partner manager based out of Singapore. Claudia joins the call with a wealth of experience being with Shopify for a number of years, working with partners and merchants as they scale their businesses globally, and has certainly got lots of awesome things to share about what Shopify are up to and how they're enabling brands to scale the right way into new places. One of the most common things that we see in our business and the logistics end, and that Michael sees at the digital end, is just the fact there is so much untapped opportunity for brands that are seeking growth, that tend to be very capped out in their own markets. And the great opportunity that Shopify have enabled is this amazing engine for the world of commerce, but more importantly, the other aspects of not just the storefront, but how do you build your storefront so it's most digitally optimized? And that's where we're going to hear more from Michael, who's going to speak specifically around storefront optimization and sharing some world-class examples of brands that have created local experiences for their customers to generate sales in new markets. And then lastly, from my side, Nick Bartlett, co-founder of Wayfinder, going to talk about the how. The physical how do we move into new markets? What's required from warehousing, fulfillment, shipping, last mile returns? It's the real ugly stuff, a lot of people say, but it's the stuff that happens at the end that's most important for that end-to-end customer experience that all of you, I'm sure, are chasing. So that's a quick wrap on our speakers today, and I'll hand over to Michael to share a little bit more about what they'll cover.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And hey, everyone, it's good to see a global audience here, given we're going to be covering that topic today. As Nick mentioned, we're based in Hong Kong, and it's a sunny day today. You can probably see out the window there and the light shining in front of our faces. Joelle's in Vietnam and Claudia's in Singapore. So a truly regional team speaking with you today. Nick mentioned the interesting parts of our presentation, and I think the reason why we've come together and curated this group is to offer our merchants an end-to-end solution when it comes to tackling challenges with going beyond borders and going global. And it's not just a webinar in terms of the 3 of us presenting together, but in actual practice, we work together. We want to make it easy for our merchants and our partners to access everything that they need from Shopify, the platform, from a front-end storefront point of view and optimization through Butter. And then, as Nick mentioned, all of the important stuff at the back end with a global logistics program. So just a quick note from me saying that after this webinar, if anyone is interested, then you've got the dream team here. Throw us any questions you have or any ideas that you want to throw around. drop them in the comments there. We'll attempt to answer them at the end of the webinar and then follow up with you after. So I look forward to presenting soon, but for now, I'll hand over to Claudia to talk about what's happening with Shopify.
Thank you very much, and really my pleasure to be joining hands with Michael and Nick together. Today, I'll be spending next 15 minutes to talk to you more about how can we win with Shopify particularly on customer journey mastery, as well as the AI power innovation of what's next. So I'm Claudia. Just now, there's an introduction about myself, and very quickly, I would like to walk you through the agenda. So first of all, I give you an introduction about Shopify. And then secondly, I would like to bring you through some key trends of the just past 2025 BFCM events, which I'll highlight some insights that we can bring through to your own business as well. And then thirdly, I'll talk deep dive into the customer journey and some winning tactics and some other tools that you can use in Shopify to help you to succeed. And then lastly, really is about AI and what Shopify is doing with it. So Shopify is actually, I don't think it's a stranger to any of you, but then a lot of people would think, Shopify is just a website builder, it's a SaaS platform. But what Shopify truly is a dedicated engineering-led company. As you can see here on this chart, right? No matter if it's across finance, payment side, O2O offline retail, internationalization, logistics, back-end marketing, multi-channel B2B, customer-facing, AI, as well as other ecosystem, we have a huge app store of 40,000 plus apps and more. So all of these, we have shipped more than 1,000 plus significant improvements on our platform for our customers since 2020, which is just 5 years ago. So basically, everything you need, everything you wanted, we have it yesterday. Now, and not just that, and not just the innate capability that we have on Shopify platform, but really is the entire partner ecosystem that can help you with your cross-border journey. Now, as you can see, we are we have a very closely knitted ecosystem. And as you can see, for all the major category that you are thinking about, including cart checkout, globalization, retail, storefront and hosting, and more, like we have the major and the most important and the localized partners that got you covered. Now, for all of these partner ecosystem, we are also supported by other, like our agencies, including Digital Butter here, that they also build, custom apps as well as, other public apps to help you to do what you want to do, especially in the journey of cross-border. Now, we're very trusted by most of the most ambitious and innovative brands on the planet. Now, I'm sure no matter which verticals that you're in, that you will get to find a lighthouse brand that is on Shopify, and they're doing very well. Now, why are we so loved by, like all of these brands? I would love to bring you through some key trends from BFCM. Then we can dive more into that on dissecting why. For 2025 BFCM, so Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend, the entire sales, the total sales of the weekend is 14.6 billion US dollar. Now it's a 27% year-on-year increase. Now that is really significant given the macroeconomy, economic environment. Now I would like to also point you through to one very important figure here in the middle is we have 81 million global merchants selling on this weekend on Shopify, but the average order value you can see here is 114.7 average order value. Now, that is some serious purchasing power on Shopify. Now, we're also seeing 5% increase year on year on that, which is, well, BFCM was used to be only the game for marketplaces, but as you can see with the legit numbers here, it is not the case. Now, also lastly is on the reliability. Just now I mentioned a lot of the brands, they are really trusting Shopify as platform. As you can see here, 5.1 million peak sales per minute that we're able to process and transact through is one really legit testimonial of how capable our platform is and reliable it is. And we're also seeing 10% increase year on year. And out of BFCM trends, I know that we're talking to a global audience today. So in case if you're selling in these countries, I hope some of these trends can help you to be more informed. So some of the top selling countries here are US, UK, continue to be Australia, Germany, and Canada this year. And some top selling countries, LA, New York, London, San Francisco, and Miami. And in the middle are some of the top selling products for the past BFCM are cosmetics, clothing, tops, pants, activewears, fitness and nutritions. And in EMEA region, just now we mentioned about, the US and the global landscape. In EMEA, particularly, we're seeing 30% increase on the weekend sales. And APAC also 28%, very close to 30%. That is really impressive. Now, why are a lot of, like your peers and all the trusting merchants are selling on our platform? I would like to bring you through how we actually help them to do cross-border business and how can we win in the entire customer journey. Now, the entire customer journey engineering on Shopify basically can be, described into four main parts. So the first one is how can we help you to acquire customer traffic? I will talk more into details of all the functionalities and products that I mentioned that are listed on this slide. Then the second part is really on the conversion rate. How can we help you check out faster? And in fact, our checkout capability is actually the highest across all the other competitors and is proven. And the third one is when they check out, how can we improve the average order value, right? I will talk into all of these, products into greater details in the later slide. And then lastly, really, how can we boost the repeat purchase with your Shopify website? And if you haven't hopped on Shopify, it is a great chance to really learn about our great functionalities as well. Now, the first one is when we really want to, open up the entire upper funnel to get more relevant audience to come into your website, we have Shopify Audiences. Now, Shopify Audiences is actually a tool on Shopify platform, on Shopify Plus, that you can use to create custom audience from your website, no matter which page they browse, abandoned cart users and things like that, to become the seed audience that help you to place display ads on platforms like Meta, Google, and Pinterest. Now, since it's launched, we're seeing 63% improvement in conversions at a lower cost of CAC, customer acquisition cost. Now, that is really impressive. So if you're in US, selling US as well as Canada, please do, try it out. And then another customer traffic acquisition tool that we have is Collab Network. Now, a lot of people, they do not know they would actually have this affiliate marketing tool, and it's one-click launch. Basically, using this tool that you can choose your vertical, who are the influencers that you want to work with, and then how can we help you to do precise tracking once they agree to work with you, and then really help to do that seamless conversion there. Now, I have an actual case for you to see here. We as Amy's Ran Fam, they're actually a noodle brand. As you can see here at this instant noodle brand, they actually use Shopify Collab, and then for one campaign, they found 432 ambassadors to help them with this campaign, and then the one event revenue is 200K plus and 4,004 number of orders. So this is really great, and I really encourage you to try this out. And then we also talk about when we drove the traffic into a website, how can we boost conversion rate, right? Now, with cross-border business, localization is king, right? So how can we help you to localize? One of the killer product that we have launched since last year is Sidekick. So Sidekick is basically your AI team, right, with superpower answering any questions that you want, right? You can ask Sidekick what are the most promising product for BFCM to sell, and then they can write you the content for BFCM, right? They can create the creative for you. And then you can also understand the order intent, the user intent, and then really ask Sidekick to help you to proactively suggest the next step of how to modify your products and services. So this is really powerful. Please try to use this if you have not. And then another cross-border killer tool that we have is Shopify Markets, which launched last year. Now, customers can now really experience a very consistent account experience on different markets of the stores. Now, if you have one in Canada and then you're launching in Mexico, right? So basically you can just turn on Shopify Market and then you can customize everything if you want a, like a very seamless brand across different region for customization as well. And then this is also makes it very easy to switch between countries and regions with one account management. So it really saves you the time as well as increasing the efficiency. And then one of the things along the entire customer journey is Shopify Payment. Now, Shopify Payment support multi-entity sales across around 30 countries right now. So it is only available on Shopify Plus plan. So I suggest you to talk to Digital Builder if you have any inquiries on that. And this really works very well with markets that helps you to, bring the customers to last mile. And I understand a lot of your brand owners that you also have your presence on different marketplaces. Now, we make it very easy that you can actually use an app to plug in your marketplace's products, and it allows you to reach millions of other buyers immediately to sync your catalog and make custom listing very easy with one central view that you don't have to go to other places. And then also the data are also aligning with your stock visibility as well as fulfillment management all in one place. This is the beauty of unified commerce on Shopify. Now, we also talk about how to increase the average order value, right? After we got them through the checkout page. Before we got them through the checkout page. So Shopify Function is really, really great for you to create bespoke discount experience. Like you can create tier discount, product bundles, volume pricing for your VIP only tiers, and then also, create one single discount for your, burst marketing campaign. And then one of the things that I want to talk about is the custom checkout. Now, just now I mentioned it's proven that our custom checkout is the best converting checkout feature solutions amongst our competitors. So if you're on Shopify Plus plan, you can see here that you can customize a lot of the feature here to make sure that you increase the customer willingness to purchase when they are on this page, when they're pulling out the credit card and more. So I've talked a lot about the background, also some of our performances and also the great features. I want to bring you to the future. Now, Shopify most recently has announced a lot of the AI improvements and innovations. So basically, it's all around the evolution of commerce operating system that we're talking about here. So we are building this AI-driven Shopify intelligence engine to serve your needs. Now, no matter if you're one-man brand owner or you have a huge team, we basically can help you to be the COO of your entire company. And then the second part is really utilizing Sidekick. Just now I mentioned our AI tool to help you to identify the opportunity before you need those, very expensive analytical tools and all the fractured data from different platforms. Now, all in one place. If you ask Sidekick, what am I going to do with my next product? What am I going to sell? How can I modify my product SKUs and things like that? You can just use Sidekick. And then also one very important feature is the predictive scaling. With Sidekick, we are actually converting real-time data into insights and tell you actionable business strategy that you can actually act on. Now, this is a Sidekick journey from 2024 to 2026. I won't go through all of them, but just so you know that we're constantly improving it even back then in 2024. And then lastly, one very exciting thing we just announced 1 month ago is our Shopify Agentic Storefront. Very, very exciting. So this is an alliance with ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, and just now we announced the UCP, which I will mention later on, with Google AI search mode as well as Gemini search. So this is basically, if you are on Shopify, then with a few toggles that we can help you to be visible on all of these, AI platforms, and then help you to be discoverable and basically to sell and complete the journey inside the, say, Copilot chat or Google AI chat mode. Now, thank you very much for listening to all my word vomit, but I hope you take away some of the, like the most initiative features on Shopify. I'll pass the time to Michael to talk more about how he helped the merchants to go cross-border.
Awesome. Thanks, Claudia. That was fantastic. The rate of change and pace of innovation of Shopify and how you guys support merchants and also agency partners like us is really powering the ecosystem. I've worked with Claudia for a while now, and our combination and the reason we collaborate is so that we can understand how these products are released and how to maximize the usage of them for our merchants. And as you can see from a lot of those slides, there's a lot there. And there's a lot we can do for our stores and our merchants that can help you unlock growth and scale. And that's where Digital Butter comes in. And that is really our role and our mission, is to help our merchants overcome their challenges, whether it be platform-based or customer experience-based on their storefront, and come up with tactics and strategies that can unlock growth. So today I wanted to talk specifically about unlocking growth internationally, and some insights that we gain from our merchants and their trials and tribulations and successes there, and then also more broadly across the ecosystem who's doing well. It's founded on really two insights that we see time and time again with our merchant partners. Firstly, that the sales share of markets of a specific merchant does obviously skew towards core markets, being 80 or 90%. But there is generally a portion of sales that is attributed to what I call international markets. So markets that are not a focus of a business, but just so happen to be selling there, potentially shipping from their core market, and potentially being bought from the core market website. And those sales, in most cases, are generated from what we call the social halo. So running social campaigns, generating views and users and interest from places around the world, and those hardcore fans then putting up with purchasing on an international website. And that's where generally that 10 to 20% comes from. And because of that, merchant teams are fully focused on their core markets. They see that small split of sales as incremental, as a bonus, but the focus tends to be on a core market or a core one or two markets that the merchant can win at. And the main reason from that is I believe, a business decision. So we see in all of the data from our merchants that conversion rates from international markets are half that of the core market. It makes sense. The focus of the team, the focus of the business is on, 1 to 3 core markets. Therefore, the international markets, where they perhaps do sell, produce lower results. And in terms of a opportunity cost, a lot of merchants talk to me and look at it and say, well, why should we invest in those markets given those conversion rates are half? So it means I have to work twice as hard to generate the same dollar value. And that's true, I think, in some cases. But what Shopify's done over the years with their Shopify Markets platform has enabled us to rapidly deploy customized and localized shop fronts in international markets, and to start to figure out ways in which we can get those conversion rates up, be more local, and start to generate some real returns from non-core / international markets. The reason we see those conversion rates halved, once you look through it and you start to interview customers and start to really understand why, isn't due to the brand or the product or the pricing. it's generally due to the experience being what we call not for me. So you can imagine a user sees a social ad for your brand or a social post for your brand, goes to your Australian, US, or UK website, and then starts to pick up different signals that potentially erode any sort of familiarity or trust that that user is trying to build. They're not seeing the fact that you deliver to that market. They're not seeing delivery costs and timelines. They're not seeing returns policies for that market. They don't even see if you exist in that market at all, and there's no evidence there that any type of effort has been made to enter that specific market. So because of that, and also because of friction in the checkout process where there can be extra fees or extra timelines for delivery, or the fact that users have to check out in a foreign currency, that's why we see the conversion rates really drop off. And I think there's a misconception there of the high opportunity cost investing in those markets. And it just leaves a lot of merchants sticking to their home market and trying to extract as much as possible. And as Nick mentioned earlier, there's a lot of merchants out there, particularly the ones we work with, that have tapped out in a lot of their core markets. They're struggling for ways to unlock growth. They're struggling for strategies that can help them really expand their business. But some of them are not seeing international selling as a viable option, given those conversion rate issues and given the costs. What we're trying to stop here, and I've just got a little video, and sorry to Casper for putting them on the spot here, because I know delivering mattress in a box is quite difficult. But as I go through this user journey, there's no indication to me that this product does not deliver to my market, which when I was in Hong Kong, I was looking at it until I got to the checkout. And that is a really, really below par user experience. It only delivers to one market. The whole website is tailored for the US, but they've forgot that actually their brand is bigger than the US. There are users coming in from other places that might be interested, but those users are not explicitly told that their product doesn't deliver there, which is a huge opportunity missed and a bit of a bugbear for me. And I see this time and time again on websites. I wanted to show you some real evidence of work that we've been doing, and forgive me for all the stats here. I'll just talk you through briefly what this is signifying. You might recognize this as an analytics report from Shopify with all the key conversion rate metrics there. So point number one, there's two figures there, 0.36 and 0.41, which is a week-on-week look at conversion rate of a home market in Hong Kong for a retailer that also has physical stores, so conversion rates are a bit lower. And then 2 and 3 is the Australian and US conversion rates, which are below half. We made some edits to very small checkout friction issues that we spotted, and you can see the results there. Conversion rates doubled in both markets, and the checkout conversion rate, which is the percentage of users who check out once commencing checkout, was 3x in the US and almost doubled in Australia. And what we implemented was a little bit counterintuitive. This was a test, and it did have dramatic results, as you saw there. The first one was to actually remove an indication of store availability. So you can see in that screenshot below the add to bag, this is tailored for the Hong Kong market where they do have local retail stores. So the whole purpose of their omni-channel experience is to push people also in store to purchase. Once we removed this from international markets, it helped users stop thinking that it wasn't for them. So a little bit counterintuitive there, and that helped increase conversion rates internationally, funnily enough. The other aspect we tested was actually being more strict with the disclaimers. So you see there next to the Australian flag, we made it clear in 2 places in the checkout that we do ship internationally, we do ship overseas, and then there's a taxes and duties liability there for you that you need to be aware of, versus the Hong Kong screenshot on the right, which was a different disclaimer, showing more around a refund policy. So these 2 small changes actually helped increase the conversion rate because it sent signals to the user that this brand does ship internationally and they're set up to do so. Behind the scenes, this is all implemented through Shopify Markets. There's no hardcore template development or no brand new websites. This is actually done within the interface and then tweaked and deployed very, very quickly. So the way we look at localization through Shopify Markets and what we're aiming for, we've summed up into 2 areas. So one is the functionality, so how we can extract the most from Shopify Markets to make the website international, so the foundations. And then the second, and I think more importantly, is the content. So the messaging, the visuals, the trust signals, everything that goes into making a website familiar and to build trust with that user. We're trying to add to the overarching framework in specific local markets with the intent of addressing the root cause of that conversion rate decline. We bucket them in 3 areas called trust, relevance, and convenience. And then we set up a different tactics once we build those foundations. And then we test, as you saw before, that one small test with the checkout and the product page resulted in dramatic gains in conversion rate. So when we run consistent programs across 2 or 3 international markets, we start to really build a local, culturally relevant website there that can help convert close to, if not above, that of the home market. Now, I wanted to show some examples so you could get the gist of what can actually be done. And it is limitless in terms of how far you want to go with localization. Brand here, Papier from the UK stationery brand. You can see on the left-hand side, they've gone as far as localizing the SEO. So a search in Australia shows that the ad title, the Google ad title there, has AU in it. So instantly the user picks up a trust signal that, hey, they are in my market and they do deliver here. Once you land on the site, then you get to choose your market and your currency. I like what they've done here. They've got 4 main markets or 3 main markets outside of the UK, and then they've got a rest of the world, which then gets pushed back into their UK store. But at least the user is aware. So if you're in a market like Hong Kong, you can transact from the UK, but you have to pay in pounds, and you likely have to put up with longer delivery times and costs. But at least I'm told that upfront, not at the end. The third image there, the stacked image, is content localization. So it's very small and very subtle, but those collection page links are different based on the market. And what's behind that is a strategy of a product catalog being localized for a specific market. Maybe they sell some things in the UK, in their home market, where they've got ideally larger warehousing than they do in the US, or they might be trialing some different products in the US as a test market. All that can be done, and all that is then represented on the front end. Third screenshot there, and this is what I really want to hit home today, is they're very, very upfront about their logistics. They offer logistics to Australia. They give you a good indication on the product page before you go further around the timelines and the cost, and then all of the terms and conditions behind that, which is super, super important at that point of purchase on the product page and not later in the checkout when it might come as a bit of a surprise. A more content-based localization here, Waterdrop, Australian site. This was taken about a week ago when the Australian Open was in full swing. So you can see them promoting their sponsorship and alignment there versus the US where they were launching a new product. So same store, same backend, localized URLs, same templated infrastructure, but then localized per market from the homepage, from the product selection to the navigation. And then the third screenshot there, their local retail partners. So all the way through their experience, they're giving off signals, they're building trust and relevance for the customer, and they're offering more convenient ways to purchase as well. All done through Shopify markets, all done outside of their core market. Gymshark, we all know Gymshark, massive brand on Shopify. Look to them for a lot of case studies. The left-hand side is a journey that I went on using an Australian IP, so you can see me shopping there. And you can see along the way, there's a lot of signals that say, hey, we do deliver in Australia, we do service this market. So the 3 screenshots represent that. First, are you in the right place? So a very casual way of saying, make sure that you are, and we do service your market. And also there, which is helpful, probably not in Australia, but in markets like Hong Kong, being dual or trilingual, you can then choose your language and be more culturally relevant there. Also, Gymshark on the PDP under the add to bag, local payment options, and then a pop-up modal there with all of the delivery details, which is super, super important. Put it up front, don't hide it on a page. We see that a lot with merchants. Their delivery terms are more contractual, they're like legalese, and they're put on a separate page, whereas the best brands in e-commerce at the moment put this stuff front and center so the customer knows exactly what service they're going to get from your brand. And it comes in different shapes and forms, but one consistent aspect of localization is it's very, very apparent. Pop-ups as soon as you go in. So you look at Skims there, they're telling you exactly what their T's and C's are for transacting with them in Australia. It doesn't turn users off. It actually helps them build familiarity and trust. So you know that the free delivery threshold is X in the local currency. You know they have local payment options. You know how long it's going to take to deliver. And then they mention that throughout the journey, not just at checkout. Super important. Again, all implemented through Shopify Markets. Lastly, doesn't all have to be serious. We're talking about terms and conditions, but Gooda do a really good job. So their CEO, Carl the Flamingo, tells you here that, hey, you're from a market that we don't service individually. So go to our US site. We can still help you, but be prepared. You're going to buy from the US site, likely in US dollars with longer delivery times. And then also a nice example here of content localization using that pop ribbon, that announcement banner, as we call it, prime real estate for any e-commerce merchant. So you've got there an indication on free shipping thresholds in your local currency, and then also a language toggle there for Canada. So really locally relevant, helps build trust instantly when you land on that site. And then the whole experience from there is a local one. All right. Now, this is a big slide, but I did want to just take a pause there because there's a lot in terms of localization under our TRC framework that we are implementing for brands. And it's designed in a way that we can help audit your store and recognize opportunities around functionality, so how we build the foundations, and then also how we apply content. So firstly, we do an audit, and then we can help with implementation. And this has been a really interesting part of our business, working with merchants who want to focus on their core market, and then they get our help to then localize what they're doing in their core market for 2, 3, or 4 other international markets where they see potential. So we look at the analytics, we choose those markets, and then it gives them confidence once we get those conversion rates up that they can invest in more social media in those markets and start to drive some real growth outside of their home. A lot of the content tactics are really cool. It's Chinese New Year coming up here. We're working with merchants to execute Chinese New Year bundling and discounts and campaigns in markets that would celebrate Chinese New Year versus more Western markets for them, which run their normal campaigns. Lots of things around localizing testimonials, reviews, local media and press. So really trying to signify to customers that they've launched in that market. And as you've seen from the one example I showed earlier, little tests, little optimizations can really boost that conversion rate once we get it right. That was a speedy run through. I'll pass over to Nick, but there's my email and QR code. Happy to work with you guys and talk to you about the opportunity of localizing a storefront. There is a lot of potential there, particularly if you're on Shopify. But even if you're not on Shopify, it still can be done on other platforms, and we can implement the TRC audit and framework for you, and then you can choose what to do next. So reach out and let us know if you want to have a chat about that. So I'm going to pass over to Nick, who briefly before mentioned that this is a bit of the dry area. I disagree. You saw how important it is on the front end to clarify shipping and logistics and delivery for customers, and how much of an impact it could make to your business in international markets. So take it away, Nick.
Cool. Thank you so much, Michael, and appreciate everyone's hard listening at this point. We're almost at the end. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistics elements, and I think the most pleasing thing about the sequence of these speakers today has just been the superpower nature of e-commerce and how it has grown so significantly, certainly in our lifetimes, and certainly more so in the future to be had as well. But just to see the engine room that is Shopify, and then to see the amazing work of how agencies like Butter are actually working with merchants to maximize every aspect of that of the features that sit inside Shopify. And while Shopify is only one of the platforms, they certainly are the market leader, dominating the direct-to-consumer space. And for us, like Mike said, the logistics piece is the bit that often gets forgotten, but it is actually the crucial bit. I always tell people it's a bit like going to the supermarket. You have an amazing experience walking around the supermarket, and then you get to the checkout, and the whole thing kind of goes to custard, and you leave the store, and that's the last impression you had, irrespective of how good the rest of the shop was as well. So today, so just quickly, my name's Nick Bartlett. I'm the co-founder and director of Wayfinder. We've been operating out of Hong Kong, helping direct-to-consumer brands to design and build direct-to-consumer logistics programs, from international freight, warehousing, fulfillment, last mile, returns, all around the world. We've helped over 100 brands globally and shipped over 10 million orders. So hopefully today you can learn a thing or two about what it means to go from having that core market. And I really like the way that Michael talks about the core and the halo, and the natural evolution of most online stores is that they do start with that core. They don't often start with a strategy to be a global dominating empire. You know, Skims, some of the examples that Michael shared are not brands that started with that ambition. Gymshark certainly didn't. But the fact that they've been able to scale their businesses through the technology enabled, but also by having strong, robust physical assets and physical operations to support it, is really what today is about. And most of all, expanding to new markets does come with some reality checks. And like Michael said, you know, the digital end of direct to consumer, you know, you can do anything on a computer, right? And that's where there's often a gap between what happens on your laptop and the shopping experience you have versus then what happens in the hard reality. And I don't know how many of you have been through warehouse visits or gone to a courier company, but you know, it's nitty gritty, heavy operational work, and the work that gets done every day to get these parcels out is quite extraordinary. But going global does open massive opportunities, but let's be honest, it does come with plenty of complexity. The difference between scaling smoothly and scrambling. And really what we see, the most common thing that happens is that there tends to be a lot of scrambling. And the scrambling comes because people just think, oh, I can just turn on international shipping, or I can just, you know, I can ship to Fiji from Hong Kong, or I can ship to the Middle East, or I can ship to the US, without really thinking about the compliance, the messaging, the costs, the duties, the taxes, the delivery times, and the varied delivery experience, and most importantly, the actual lack of experience in understanding the market that they're selling to. And that localization piece that we just covered, and what Shopify Markets is able to enable is quite extraordinary compared to where we were not that long ago. First of all, you know, what is a 4PL? So a lot of people ask us, you know, what's the difference between what Wayfinder does versus what the other logistics companies do? So most logistics companies in a traditional sense operate an asset-led business, which means they drive the trucks, they have the warehouses, they run the forklifts, they drive the delivery vans around the cities. But as a 4PL, we act much more as a non-asset operator, sitting like a control tower at an airport, where we design and manage the logistics using an extensive network of providers that we have built through our business over the last 10 years. And as of today, you know, we are one of the market leading 4PLs sitting out of Asia, working with Western brands that are looking to grow their businesses internationally. And by partnering with people like the team at Shopify and Butter, we're able to not only understand what's happening at the front of the end of their store, but how that front end and that customer promise that they're trying to deliver, how does that actually show up when it comes to the downstream logistics and the experience that people are trying to have. The main difference between the two, in terms of kind of what gets done well and what the differences are, and this is a pretty basic slide, but a 3PL is, you know, what they do well is they own and operate the assets. As I said, they are the asset operators. They have deep expertise in their facilities and their carrier management. They're very hands-on, and they have a direct operational relationship. They're really well suited for brands with more straightforward logistics and focused regions. So, you know, if you look at really big enterprise type brands, the Nikes, the New Balances, these sorts of guys who have got big omni-channel retail footprint plus big direct to consumer, these guys tend to be very sort of regional or almost marketized, where they are sitting in one market, where 3PLs are a really good fit for that type of business, because those businesses have got significant scale but operating inside so many single markets. Whereas a 4PL sits to orchestrate multiple 3PLs across a single program, which means that, you know, we may have one brand that produces product in China that sells to 100 countries around the world, but we may operate with 3 or 4 3PLs in the world to deliver that work. And that's really the art of the 4PL. It's the orchestration between the various network providers that we design and bring together under our proprietary technology to offer brands far more smooth and it's easier way to scale internationally, rather than the brands trying to scramble. Oh, I need to find someone here, a 3PL in the US, and I need a 3PL in the Middle East, and I need someone in Australia. And you know what? I don't actually know anything about those markets. So how do I know if I'm getting a good deal or if I'm getting ripped off, or what the local compliances are? The art of the 4PL is to certainly orchestrate, provide that knowledge, and create that layer of value for the brand as they're looking to grow. So as brands are looking to scale, the most common playbook that we see tends to sort of start with that very core that Michael said. And that core tends to be very, US centric or European centric. And then it moves to sort of thinking, oh, we're starting to get a bit of halo effect from East, or perhaps from the UK and Europe. I saw a really good example actually last week of an Australian brand called Kojo Fit. They're a men's apparel brand. Really cool. Had a good chat with the founders there, and they said within a year they're receiving about 15-20% of just organic business, but they're fulfilling everything out of Australia. Which, if you think about that, they're producing in China. They're then bringing it all the way down to Australia. They're paying customs. They're putting it in a very expensive warehouse in Sydney, because let's be honest, Australia is not cheap. And then from there, they're shipping both locally and internationally. So all of a sudden, their business has hit this kind of threshold where they're saying, hey, what are our options here to be able to service these customers? And that 15%, 20% is actually coming from over 50 countries. It's not just coming from one market being dominant on the halo effect. It's coming from so many small countries as well. So proven that they now need to make a shift to build to that TRC framework that Michael talked about, and they need to start making changes for how they're going to do that. And to do that physically, to support that workflow physically, there are kind of two playbooks that we see. A centralized cross-border program, which if you look at the predominance of drop shipping type brands, there are plenty of those on Shopify. Among I think Claudia said there are 81 million active merchants, which is just extraordinary, a stat on its own. But if you think about that really long tail on Shopify, a lot of those guys start with a more centralized cross-border program, which means that they use tools like Shopify Markets to create localization and to generate duties and tax calculations and compliance in their storefront, to then be able to offer a DHL Express or a China Post Express or one of these carriers, a consolidated type carrier that might ship from, let's say, a centralized warehouse in Hong Kong or a centralized warehouse in China, where a lot of centralization tends to take place, or perhaps they centralize directly out of somewhere like the US, like that other example that Michael shared, where they're letting customers know, hey, we do service you, but we only service you from our USDC. So therefore, in order to ship to you, it's going to cost you more money. It's going to take more time. And the experience might not be quite as good as what it would be if you were sitting here locally. So that's generally where a lot of brands start, is in that sort of centralized capacity. And then the playbook too, really, and it does come with the unit economics, of course, that you have to assess, what are the relevant break-even points for a business to make decisions to start setting up different hubs and moving around inventory in different places, because all of these decisions contribute cost, and they contribute time and energy that you have to allocate as a business. The thing that people love the most about the centralized model is that it's a much more easier way to manage your business day to day. All your inventory is in one place. You can ship internationally. Maybe your customer experience is not quite as good, but you tend to not worry so much about that because the money's flowing and the operation's easy to manage. But for the brands that get to a certain state of capacity, and that really does vary from brand to brand, in all honesty, there are some brands that might get to 500 orders a month. That might be sufficient to go to a decentralized model. Other brands might need to get to 5,000 a month, just depending on the general unit economics of their product, the cost of the inventory, and how they want to be set up in these other places. But best for, like I said, the centralized model, best for testing new markets with limited resources. Pros, lower working capital, simple inventory, as I mentioned, one system, one team, generally speaking. Cons, you have a much longer lead time. As you'll see, for example, anyone drop shipping out of China is looking at somewhere between 5 and 10 days to get an order to a customer in the US, versus a 2-3 day service locally. Decentralized, proven, scaling for proven markets. So where you've got that halo effect, where you've built trust, where you've kind of gone through that localization experience of proving to customers that you can sell and have success there, then you move into a decentralized. that gives you faster delivery times, lowers your overall cost per order, and gives you a better consistent experience. Downsides, there's a bit more working capital tied up in inventory and multiple DCs and so forth, and there is more complex coordination, but which is why the 4PL model services really well for these types of customers. Here just looks at the global reach of the 4PL model and the benefits that you can gain from being able to partner with providers like Wayfinder if you're considering moving into new markets. You can see here that this map dots all the different locations that we have physical operations in through the network providers, covering warehouse fulfillment, freight forwarding, delivery, origin coordination, which is things like picking up from factory, QCing, making sure product is ready and fit for being freighted into DCs, the air and ocean freight movements, customs clearances, and then what we call like value-added services, which can be things like integrations with other partners that sit inside the ecosystem, inside your Shopify storefront, for example. It could be physical value-add services like doing a whole bunch of labeling and QCing extra product to make sure that it's compliant for a new market, relabeling, for example. But as of today, 28 markets for us served, over 300 vendors that sit inside our vendor database, 35 locations in over 4 continents. The only areas that we're not covering to support brands at this time is really Africa and South America at this time, whereas the rest of the world is mostly covered. I just wanted to share a couple of case studies quickly just to sort of give you a sense of how certain brands have navigated their growth to go from where they are today to moving into scaling into new markets. And they've done it really, really well. And they've done it through leveraging the tools like Shopify, working with smart agencies like Butter, and then partnering with strong infrastructure partners like Wayfinder to deliver a really seamless customer experience. Tacoma Golf are a European golf business that are founded out of Finland. They were founded during COVID, believe it or not. The founder, Sebastian Hubbard, he never went to the factory only up until about 18 months ago or 2 years ago, and built a business on a promise to customers that golf clubs should be far more affordable than they are. And anyone on this call that knows anything about golf will know that there are probably about half a dozen of really famous golf brands, and they all charge about on price parity with one another, put themselves relatively highly premium positioned. And his hypothesis was that we could build a business servicing global demand for golf, but making premium products at affordable prices. And that hypothesis for his own business resulted in huge amounts of growth. But obviously, golf clubs are not the easiest thing to move around. Anyone that's played golf will know that you carry on average 8 golf clubs in a golf bag, 10 if you're slightly better, and 12 if you're really good. And from there, that it weighs somewhere between 4 and 6 kilos of weight. So shipping everything from one local facility doesn't really make sense. Therefore, the solution was to move to a dual stream fulfillment operation, moving freight from origin into the US market, and then a direct model for that. What they have is a custom order workflow where people can order custom products. So, for example, I could put my name on the golf club. I could have a different shaft length, those kind of things. Being able to scale the business to be able to service, 1, the demand that was coming through, but 2, managing the inventory, the working capital costs of the inventory, and making sure that customer experience was really positive, meant that they had to move really quickly with scaling into new markets, because whilst they had core countries, golf is a global game and loved by many, and they're shipping now to over, I think, around 150 countries we shipped to last year. For them, some countries only got 1 order for the year, but the point being that you've got to be in a strong position to be able to service all of those global countries that we're receiving orders from. So the challenge, big growth solution, was a multi-setup, including even a change in their manufacturing, which they established, which we re-established origin operations for. And then the result, obviously, increasing customer experience and ensuring that customer promise that they delivered, that they want their brand to deliver, being premium but affordable, smarter inventory cycles, and then we launched the European DC on top of it. So a really good case study, only a business 4 years old, and doing significant volumes early on. This one here you might be more familiar with. This guy was on Netflix on a documentary called Don't Die. His name's Brian Johnson. He's a bit of a madman, but an entrepreneur nonetheless, and some interesting ideas, but a great business in attributing, we're following customer trends, but also seeing a huge opportunity for their business that originated out of the US. They were manufacturing all of their products. This is a supplement business. For those that don't know Brian is a don't die advocate. He believes that if he takes enough pills and does enough exercise and sleeps well enough, then he might not die, which is ambitious and impressive. All in two, I think we could all probably learn something from him. But he's got a broad range, a beautiful range of products that are shipping internationally, manufacturing in the US, and then selling all over the world, with Asia becoming a really big hub for them, particularly China. Now they've made a really big entrance into the Chinese market, but obviously, trying to go international with demand from the US shipping out to Asia, where you look at the lead times, you look at how long it takes to ship things, as well as looking at the compliance of shipping things like snake oil, which is a liquid in a 300-400 ml bottle, as well as some of the compliance of import of certain products into certain countries like Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, where we service, where they were needing to deliver to, meant that they needed to change the operational setup, localize their storefronts, which they did successfully with the likes of agency support and Shopify markets. And then from there, we're able to deliver, a much superior customer experience and actually reach a whole nother market that they weren't even in. 2 years ago, they weren't even in really Asia. They just had a bit of halo sales volume coming to Hong Kong and Korea. And now I think it's about 20% of their business is Asia Pacific, with China probably likely to take the Don't Die movement, maybe to being their number one market in due course. So another good example of brands that have made that change to take physical action to establish themselves in different areas. And lastly, this is Lashify. This is a lash company based out of the US. For the women on the call, this one might be more familiar. These guys are a US company, very heavily patented products made in China, lots of knockoffs of it, but Lashify held the market as one of the market leaders for women's lashes. And they had a real problem because they were getting significant demand in that halo effect that Michael talked about, but they were getting such big demand for UK and Europe, but they were only fulfilling everything out of the US, and they were doing it haphazardly with no understanding and a real lack of knowledge of what the local regulations were, what the local customer experience should be. And as a result, we set up the UK fulfillment for a single market and lead all of the logistics from there, including now optimizing a European delivery from the UK rather than from the US. So really good examples of brands that had that core, built their core, started to look at what they needed to do in order to service those sort of halo secondary markets, and have built successful businesses off the back of it. And a really good testament to the framework that they followed, that Michael talked about, into the power of the likes of Shopify markets. The 4PL wins for cross-border and the decentralization model, because you get access to a single point of contact. There's no asset being locked in. We're the ones locking in any assets, so you don't need to worry so much about that. We take a global view of your business and of the customer promise that you're trying to achieve. So we're not just focused on, the best pick and pack or the best courier in one market. We've got that holistic perspective, and we're really staying close to compliance management and making sure that brands are updated with the relevant compliance changes. And to give you an example, this year in Europe, they're expecting a big regulatory change where the de minimis shipping into Europe will be removed from about May or June time, which will result in about a €3 per parcel fee that will be applied as like a flat duty fee that will go on for every single parcel. So any merchants sitting on this call that are looking or that are shipping cross-border into Europe, big changes on the way there. So it could be time to have a chat. This is just a little bit about the growth by region that we've seen across the 4PL model and what the growth looks like in the next seven years. This was a report that we had procured last year. And this is really just signaling the intent of the 4PL shift. And as brands look for more support, the model is certainly enabling growth much quicker and much more easy. This here, we have a really helpful 4PL white paper that talks a lot about the direct-to-consumer market. It talks about the forecast and where we see spend going for brands, as well as sort of what some of the key technology drivers are. So if you're interested, you can download this using that scan there. But alternatively, we can also share this pack, and you can scan it later as well. So look at that. I think I've nailed it on time-wise. 5:02 on my phone, 4:59 on my laptop. So hopefully everybody feels like they've learned something today, but I'll just hand it over now for any Q&A that people have got. I'm not sure, Joel, if we got any questions during the call, but please drop your questions in. We do have another sort of, I think, 15 minutes allocated on the call. If anyone's got any questions, we can give it a minute.
Nick, I've got one for you, which comes up in conversations I have with merchants when we're working together and partnering on the logistics strategy, and then obviously the storefront strategy. But your case studies outlined brands at different growth stages. At what point is what point do you find merchants and brands coming to you? In what stage of their growth does your services and 4PL make sense? Obviously, expansion internationally is the goal, but when are those brands coming to you? What part of their evolution?
Generally, it's a really good question, because generally you would think they would come right at the start, but actually they don't. They actually come to us when they're looking. We're often the first port of call for that halo, and I really like that analogy that you've got in there in your pack about the core and the supporting of the halo countries, because generally it's when they start getting enough demand for those halos that our model starts to kick in, because then they say, right, I need to work with someone not just in my core, because the reality is for our business model, and the truth is that if it's just local to local, our model doesn't make as much sense as the truth, right? If you're just looking for a local Australian warehouse or a local Hong Kong only warehouse, and you don't want to have anything to do otherwise to do internationally, or there is no other sort of cross-border or touch point outside of that, then we're not so valuable. But we're very valuable as soon as you start getting that demand out. So I'd say that on average, we get most of it at that point where people are saying, hey, I'm in Australia or I'm in the UK, but I need help here, I need help there. And that's when we're able to start really looking at designing and building a program that works really, really well for brands that are interested to go into those markets. But more importantly, it also then allows us to go back to the origin market, to the core market, and service that later in time. And we find that because at the end of the day, we want all of it under the 4PL model, because it makes more sense for the brand, right? The value gets created when it's all together. We might start with 2 or 3 markets internationally, and then we would often try and come back to the core and say, right, now we've got all the expertise in running this internationally, then let's also look at running it in your core as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But we see the catalyst being interest from non-core markets. So it could be an increase in social followers from an Asia Pacific market or a North American market, and then merchants start to get really interested. Okay, I've got some sales from there, but obviously my conversion rates are low, and I don't have the logistics backend set up for it. So we find that a lot of it comes from the content they're putting out, and that social halo, and it can be the catalyst.
Yeah, and you know what? I think, like I said, sometimes the unit economics of it don't make sense. Like if you've only got a small amount of social presence or social benefit coming back your way from things you've done. But once it gets to a point where there's like consistency, it's like, well, hold on a minute. Lots of people in the UK are buying our product, and we're not even really selling it to them. So as a result, we need to build a plan around that. It's that whole trust, relevance, convenience piece, right? And the fact that you've got the provenness there. People that come to us and say, I just want to sell here, here, and here, and they don't have that kind of provenness or any track record, then of course it's a much harder conversation. But I see Chase. Hey Chase, you've asked a question here. Do you have any recommendation for localization tools, software, or best practices? Maybe Mike, you want to take that one? I can answer it from a logistics perspective on some tools that we've used, but why don't you?
I think platform storefront related, it is horses for courses. So globally, more of a larger infrastructure that can help with localization, merchant of record, and Nick will probably cover that too. The guys at Wayfinder partner very closely with Globally. But as a solution below that for merchants of a certain size, we find Shopify Markets has increased in its flexibility and the tools that they're offering for localization. It was only a few years ago that we were building multiple Shopify stores for one brand. So we were building individual stores for Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, US, and then trying to bring them together in the back end and management-wise. But now the flexibility has allowed us to localize in those markets and still retain some control or enough control in them. with that plan, particularly if we're talking Shopify and Shopify markets, comes an array of tactics and apps that we use to then facilitate the localization. So I see, Chase, you mentioned Weglot for the facilitation of content translation. Really good tool. It's got some AI baked into it, so you don't have to translate everything yourself, although a lot of the merchants do. But its main purpose is to then allow you to have a multilingual store and execute that on Shopify. There's also a lot around search and discovery, product recommendation, so you can start to get some cultural nuance into product recommendation. There's a whole, what we call an e-commerce stack of tools that we would implement for localization if we're talking Shopify. And then there's the equivalent on other platforms that we also implement for clients.
Yeah, awesome. Also, hopefully, Chase, that gives you some answer on that. On the logistics front, certainly the benefit of using tools like Globally, for example, or Shopify Markets is that the storefront experience is localized with everything being calculated, duty and tax inclusive within the correct currency. That's one. That the other that we're seeing a lot of on the physical side is more of like a local delivery experience. Which tends to get skewed. So a lot of brands now actually have a decentralized model, but are actually shipping it from China, but making it look like it's a local delivery. So they're actually shipping nothing with labels from China on it or anything like that. So they're sort of doing what's called a direct injection and then bringing it in and breaking it down and relabeling it. And that's more, whilst that's not a tool, that's something we are seeing to kind of create that perception of the localization as well. We've got some questions in here about returns. We're primarily retail just in the UK, but we're looking at doing some overseas. We're into swim, and returns on the industry is high, and this is something that's holding us back. Do you have a process for returns? Yeah, obviously returns are, to be honest, they're a bit of a pain in the ass, really, aren't they? I think for most brands. But as anything, opportunity gets created where hard work is staring you in the face. And returns is certainly a segment in logistics that has really come on. As Wayfinder, we have a number, given our model as a 4PL, we have a number of returns providers that we work with. So you can reach out to us and I'll be happy to give you some answers there and some suggestions around how we could support with returns. But the tricky thing with returns on cross-border, obviously, is that you don't want to ship something out for $30, you have to ship it back for $30. So you certainly need some smart partners in the destination markets that you're shipping to be able to keep that cost relatively down. And obviously try and work with your digital agencies to minimize the level of return as well through the store experience and the education that you provide at the storefront end as well. And I see some really good examples of stores that do that really, really well. I don't know about all of you on this call, but probably a lot of us have got people at home that are constantly buying things and constantly returning things, like I do have at my house. And I often ask the question, like, do you not just look at the size guide? Why do you keep choosing different things? But e-com brands haven't always made it easy for themselves because they've made returns really easy. So I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a big shift around returns. And I think it'll maybe go the other way. When it comes to logistics, how do you choose the carriers you work with, or are there more subcontractors, 3PLs you work with? Adrian, that's a really good question. It's a combination of both, is the truth. So we have obviously a very wide number of third-party warehouse fulfillment providers that we work with globally who do have their own carrier contracts in place, just like they would in their normal operation. So in some cases, we do take advantage and leverage the 3PL's carrier contracts, but the big difference with our model is that we are consolidating all of our customers across our supply pool. So we're not just putting one customer with one supplier. And as a result, we're able to sort of negotiate the bargaining power of our rates to be more commercially competitive. And in some cases, that means that the 3PLs provide us with superior commercials, but on other cases, we also bring our own carrier contracts into the 3PL as well. So for example, across Asia, we have all of our own carrier contracts because we're in a far stronger position to be able to do that with the likes of Shongfeng and the LBCs and these sorts of guys and across Asia. And then in other markets, we would rely on the 3PL. So we can give you a really good cross section there and give you a good price, some good price references as well. And I think there's another one here. We currently choose the carriers. That might be related to the returns question. Visanu, is it? Maybe you want to ask that question again. I'm not sure if I totally understand that one, but thank you for those questions. Any other questions that people would like to ask?
And just remember, you guys can book, if you see the QR codes on the slide, you can follow Michael and Claudia on LinkedIn, and you can book a meeting with Nick. Big opportunity there. So a few more minutes if there's any other questions. And another thing is next week we'll be following up. So please check your emails. We'll be sending you guys a checklist, kind of a scaling across borders checklist for the front side, which is Shopify storefront, and the back end, which is on the fulfillment side. So check your emails early next week. Any other questions?
Is it a question for, who's that for, Adriana? Is that for Claudia, Nick, or Michael? Are you looking to expand more in Europe? Okay, sure. Yep, we're pretty active in Europe already, and we have been for the last 5-6 years, with operations based out of Netherlands and Germany. So, for us, of course, as a business, we are still growing on our side too. So, of course, we're always looking for to support more and more merchants across the European continent as well. So, yep, certainly a focus for us. And this, just as a last wrap, I'd just like to sort of say thank you to Michael and to Claudia from Shopify and from Butter Digital. Really great chance to get together and put this webinar on. Certainly hope you guys got something out of it. When we were exploring sort of the different topics, this is the most common thing that came up, and Michael and I were having a beer late last year and just talking about the fact that, the one of the areas to unlock the growth of our own businesses is the fact that there's so much opportunity with brands that are locked into their core markets and really do want to do more things, but they just don't really know how, or the knowledge is not there, the right partners aren't there for them. So I trust today's kind of given all of you on the call and on the registration for today some sense as to kind of what it can take and how, with the right partners it can be done. And there's so many great case studies. And whilst everyone focuses on the top of the Shopify funnel, there's 80 million merchants there, all who also could do great things too that represent more the tail as well. So thank you on behalf of Wayfinder, and I look forward to engaging with all of you at some point in the future.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.